Mrs. Adamson.
Yes, thank you. We have currently now 66 persons in the shelter, and we can go through a list and tell you that generally we have at Hildeskeen one person, at Hillaby Turner's Hall. We had one person, but that person left after midnight, so persons are still going out there, but that's the only one that left. We have 8 at Blackman and Gollop, 17 at Christchurch Foundation, 1 at Cuthbert Moore. At Combermere we have 5 persons. At Harrison College we have 5. Leicester Vaughan 3. Hillaby Seventh-day Adventist 8. Ellerton Wesleyan Holiness Church 1. The Church of God Orange Hill 4. Connelltown Pentecostal House of Prayer 2. 6 Roads Church of Christ 3. At the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Conference Center we have 4. And at the Lodge School we have 4 persons, bringing a total of 66 persons currently now in our shelters.
So it sounds to me, based on your last update, that we have seen an increase in the numbers.
Yes, there was an increase in the numbers since we would have updated previously. Persons did come in after midnight, after 2 o'clock. We actually had persons come into the shelter, and the shelter wardens are just keeping us up to date. They will be supplying the names of the persons, the address where they're located, so that we can start looking at the vulnerable. We can start looking at doing some damage assessments, what will be needed to be done in terms of the locations of these individuals.
Now, you had mentioned several new shelters in the press conference yesterday. Are any of those in use at the moment?
Yes, they are. We actually have Harrison College, Hillaby Seventh-day Adventist, Ellerton Wesleyan Holiness, the Church of God at Orange Hill, and the 6 Roads. Well, no, that's not new. Yeah, 6 Roads Church of Christ. That's a new one that would have been added. So persons have taken advantage of the additional shelters that we've added to the list.
Certainly great to hear. Can you say, let's talk about the COVID-19 protocols.
Yes. Okay, the Ministry of Health would have submitted protocols for us to share with the shelter wardens. We would have trained them. We would have made sure that they had all the necessary sanitizing material, and there is a checklist for them when they're doing the registration. So in addition to just taking the temperature and sanitizing, they actually have to ask certain questions so that they can identify if any of the shelters show any sort of symptoms. And at each shelter there's an isolated area, just like how we have for the schools, so that if any individual, because obviously now we can't go anywhere in these conditions, they have to be isolated until we get the all clear, and then we will actually have the Ministry of Health deal with those persons if necessary.
Have you been given any indication as to the ages of the people in the shelters, or perhaps whether they're individuals or families?
We have some individuals, the one that we actually have here, but we do have families and we do have children right up to senior citizens actually in the shelters.
What sort of conditions, because I know you're getting updates in real time from the shelter wardens, what sort of conditions are they seeing at the shelters across the island?
Well, what we're hearing, the same thing that Sabu was saying, that the wind has picked up. I just had a principal telling me that is kicking up at CP. So we know that the winds have picked up in some places. Rain is in a lot of the areas, but they're huddled down and they believe that they're safe at this particular time.
And when you said change hats for a moment and speak to you as the acting chief education officer, you had mentioned that there will be no CSEC exams today.
Yes.
What is the plan going forward in terms of rescheduling those exams?
Well, CXC, they don't reschedule the exams. CXC will work with the students. So if it was, for instance, in Cape, you might have one paper in chemistry scheduled for today. They will do an evaluation of the other paper that you will write. Now for the literatures, we have both the literature papers were planned for today, the paper 1 and the paper 2. So the CXC will have to do, they can actually do an amendment, and not an amendment, they can actually do an alternative paper if necessary, because as you can see it's Barbados and possibly St. Vincent that will be impacted, and therefore they have to put things in place for that situation. So because this is new to us, but it might not be new to some other territories who might have had some sort of hazard, who might have had some sort of natural disaster, they've put things in place so that the students are not disadvantaged in any way. So students, you should not fear. We will work with you to make sure that you will be given a grade for the CXCs that you missed today.